I am the sun, Jerusalem. You are a painted sky. I am a bird, Jerusalem. You have the wings to fly. You are the father of my dreams. I am a gift of time. I am your child, Jerusalem. Jerusalem is mine. You are an orchard in the sand. I am the fruit you bear. You are the glove that warms my hand. I am the smile you wear. You are the music of the hills. I am the words that rhyme. I am your song, Jerusalem. Jerusalem is mine. You are the cradle of freedom. I am the harvest of springtime. You are the dawn of a new day. I am tomorrow. You are forever. You are my shelter from the storm. I am your guiding light. You are a book whose leaves are torn. I am a page you write. You are the branches of a tree. I am a clinging vine. I am your prayer, Jerusalem. Jerusalem is mine. I am your prayer, Jerusalem. Jerusalem is mine.
Shabbat Shalom, good Shabbos to everyone. It's nice to see you at the end of a beautiful week and the start of an even more beautiful weekend. I want to offer a special welcome to a group of students from Pacific Union College. I think, would you raise your hands if you've come down from Angwin? Everyone in the back, welcome. I think, if I remember correctly, it's part of a world religions class or world cultures class, so they're visiting us tonight and checking out a Shabbat service here. And also a special welcome to our speaker tonight, Beth Painter, who is an active CBS member, former board member. She was chair of the search committee that hired me, and a friend. And Beth is going to be talking about her recent trip to Israel with a number of other Jewish elected officials from the Bay Area. It's very topical because Tuesday night marks Yom HaAtzmaut, the start of Israeli Independence Day. We're going to be celebrating that here at CBS Sunday morning at 11:30 with the barbecue, Israeli dancing, Israeli music, Israeli food. While these are complicated times in terms of the relationship between Israel and the diaspora, it is the 75th anniversary of Israel's founding in 1948, and it is certainly something to celebrate, and we look forward, Beth, to your comments a little bit later tonight. I would like to invite Henny Cohen to come up to the bima to light our Shabbat candles this evening. And those of you from PUC, if you have any questions during the service tonight, just save them and I'll try to answer them after the service. The blessing is on page 120 if you want to follow along.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kiddushanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu l'hadlik ner shel Shabbat.
Amen.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kiddushanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu l'hadlik ner shel Shabbat.
Page 142, we're going to sing Shalom Alechem, a song about peace, something that this country and this world so desperately needs.
Shalom Alechem, Malachei Hasharet, Malachei Elyon, Mi Melech, Malachei Hamlachim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Boachem l'shalom, Malachei HaShalom, Malachei Elyon. Mi melech malachei hamlachim hakadosh baruch hu. Baruch hu ni l'shalom malachei hashalom malachei elyon. Mi melech malachei hamlachim hakadosh baruch hu. Sechem l'shalom, malachei hashalom, malachei elyon. Mi melech malachei hamlachim, hakadosh baruch hu.
Our call to worship, the Baruch Hu, is on page 146. If you are able, please rise.
La 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 la. La 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 la. La 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 la. La 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 la. La 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 la. La 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 la. Baruch, Baruch hu et Adonai Hamevorach. Baruch Adonai Hamevorach, Hamevorach le'olam va'ed. Hamevorach, Hamevorach le'olam va'ed.
Please remain standing and join me at the top of page 149. Praise to you, Adonai our God, from whom the evening flows. Your wisdom sets the way on which time and season glide. Your breath guides the sail of the stars. Creator of the tide of time and light, you guide the current of day into night. As heaven spans to infinity, you set its course for eternity. Praise to you, Adonai our God, from whom the evening flows. Baruch atah Adonai Hama'ariv Aravim. Page 151. As you taught Torah to those whose names I bear, teach me Torah too. Its mystery beckons, yet I struggle with its truth. You meant Torah for me. Did you mean the struggle for me too? Don't let me struggle alone. Help me to understand, to be wise, to listen, to know. Lead me into the mystery. Baruch atah Adonai, Ohev Amo Yisrael.
Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. Baruch Shem Kevod Mahuto Leolam Va'ed. V'ahavta et et Adonai Elohecha b'chol levavcha uv'chol nafshecha uv'chol meodecha v'hayu hadvarim ha'ele asher anochi mitzavacha hayom al levavecha v'shinantam levanecha v'dibarta bam b'shivtecha b'veitecha uv'lektecha v'derech uv'shokbecha uv'kumecha ukshartam leot al yadecha v'hayu latotafot bein einecha uktavtam al mezuzot beitecha uvisharecha leman tiskaru va'asitem et kol mitzvotai v'item kidoshim lelohechem ani Adonai Elohechem Asher hotzeti etchem me'eretz Mitzrayim liot lachem le'Elohim Hani Adonai Elohechem.
Page 157 at the top of the page. Standing on the parted shores of history, we still believe what we were taught before ever we stood at Sinai's foot, that wherever we go, it is eternally Egypt, that there is a better place, a promised land, that the winding way to that promise passes through the wilderness, that there is no way to get from here to there except by joining hands and marching together. Page 158.
Mi chamocha ba'elim Adonai, mi chamocha nedar b'kodesh, mi chamocha ba'elim Adonai, mi chamocha nedar b'kodesh. Nora oseh Adonai imloch leolam va'ed Malchutecha ra'uvanecha Bokei hayam lifnei Moshe u'Miriam Ze'elianu ve'amaru Ze'elianu ve'amaru Adonai imloch leolam va'ed Mi chamocha ba'elim Adonai Mi chamocha nedar b'kodesh Mi chamocha ba'elim Adonai Mi chamocha nedar b'kodesh.
Please join me at the top of page 161. Let there be love and understanding among us. Let peace and friendship be our shelter from life's storms. Adonai, help us to walk with good companions, to live with hope in our hearts and eternity in our thoughts, that we may lie down in peace and rise up waiting to do your will. Baruch atah Adonai, haporei sukat shalom, aleinu ve'al kol amo Yisrael, ve'al Yerushalayim.
We're going to start at the top of page 161, and then we're going to move over to the top of page 160. Let there be love and understanding among us. Let peace and friendship be our shelter from life's storms. Let there be love and understanding among us. Let peace and friendship be our shelter from life's storms. Hashkivenu Adonai Eloheinu l'shalom, l'shalom. V'hamidenu shomreinu l'chayim. Ufros aleinu Sukkot Shlomecha, Ufros Aleinu, Sukkot Shlomecha. Amen. Hashkivenu Adonai Eloheinu l'shalom, l'shalom. V'hamidenu shomreinu l'chaim. Ufros aleinu Sukkot Shlomecha, Ufros aleinu Sukkot Shlomecha. Amen. Shelter us beneath your wings. Bottom of page 161. Guard us from all harmful things, O Adonai. Keep us safe throughout the night, till we wake with morning's light. Teach us, God, wrong from right. Amen. 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 Amen.
Please take a moment now for your own silent thoughts and prayers.
Avir harim salul kayahin, v'reach oranim. Nisa beruach ha'abayim, im kol pa'amonim. Uvtar demat ilan va'even, shua b'choloma. Ha'ir asher badad yoshevet, ובליבה חומה. ירושלים של זהב, ושל נחושת ושל אור, הלא לכל שירייך אני כינור. ירושלים של זהב, ושל נחושת ושל אור, הלא לכל שירייך אני כינור. איך יבשו בורות המים, כיכר השוק ריקה, ואין פוקד את הר הבית בעיר העתיקה. ובמערות אשר בסלע מהללות רוחות, ואין יורד אל ים המלך בדרך יריחו. ירושלים של זהב, ושל נחושת ושל אור, הלא לכל שירייך אני כינור. ירושלים של זהב, ושל נחושת ושל אור, הלא לכל שירייך אני כינור, כינור.
At this point in our service, we pause and think of those in need of healing on this Shabbat, healing of body, healing of spirit, and healing of heart. And we ask God to bestow the bracha, the blessing of refuah shlema, full and complete healing on the following men and women from our congregation or those known and loved by our community: Ilana Massey, Kevin Brackett, Michelle Camisia, Joshua Hyman, Diane Butler, Jesse Friedman, Marjorie Gilberg, Michael Blend, Jim Mates, Janet Marbury, Brenda Flood, Sharon Blevis, Joan Elson, Sherry Cohos, Lynn McManus, Walter Wilmert, Jerry Mautner, Kirk Whitlatch, Barbara Cosson, Etta Kessler, David Rabb, Jensen Beach, Carl Smith, Aaron Ledden, Geraldine Kokish, David Mendelson, and Minnie Shostak. And if anyone has a name they would like to add to our list, I invite you to please do so. The Misha Berach is on page 511.
Misha Berach Avotenu Mekor HaBracha Imotenu. May the source of strength, who blessed the ones before us, help us find the courage to make our lives a blessing, and let us say Amen. Misheberach imotenu Mekor habracha lavotenu. Those in need of healing with refuah shlema, the renewal of body, the renewal of spirit, and let us say Amen.
We continue on page 586. Charles, you know what I'm about to ask you, right? Every time you come, I'm going to ask you. What am I asking you? To open the ark, exactly. So come on up. If everyone else would please rise.
עלינו לשבח לאדון הכל, לתת גדולה ליוצר בראשית, שלא עשנו כגויי הרצות, ולא שמנו כמשפחות האדמה, שלא שם חלקנו כהם, וגורלנו ככל המונם, ואנחנו קוראים ומשתחווים ומודים לפני מלך מלכי המלכים הקדוש ברוך הוא. ונאמר והיה אדוני למלך על כל הארץ ביום ההוא יהיה אדוני אחד ושמו אחד.
Please be seated. Great job, Charles. You keep coming to services. I'll keep putting you to work. It is my privilege and honor to invite board member Mark Charney to please come up to the bima to share some important announcements with you tonight.
So, Shabbat Shalom, everyone. This Sunday, Yom HaAtzmaut, community barbecue with Israeli dancing and barbecue lunch potluck. RSVP is online on the website. Let us know what you will bring. April 24th at 7 p.m., CBS Hebrew High will meet with the rabbi and Leah in person, also on the same day and at the same time, but online via Zoom, is the Soul Sisters Book Club. We'll meet with this month's book, Classic Yiddish Stories by S.Y. Abramovich, Shalom Aleichem, and I.L. Peretz. On Wednesday, April 26th at 7 p.m. in the CBS Kitchen, join Judaism Tribe with Farrah Garber. On Thursday, April 27th, the Tribe for Your Right to Resilience will meet at 6:30 in the CBS Administrative Building. Saturday, April 29th, there will be Torah study at 10:30 in the morning. Sunday, April 30th, join the Coffee and Chat Tribe gathering at 9:30 with past President Mark Samrick and Synagogue Director Lauren Snyder. It's time to celebrate CBS 70th anniversary. We'll be celebrating all summer, but we're kicking it off with our 3-day weekend in the middle of May, May 19th, 20th, and 21st. The big event is Saturday night, the 20th. Tickets are still on sale. We only have a few seats left, however. RSVPs are open for Shabbat and then the Sunday fun day as well. And then we'd also like to give warm wishes to this week's birthdays, to Eric Ewig, Paul Siegel, Anina Schwartz, Aaron Thornton, Sar Carfiol, Dania Massey, Katie DePasqua, Aviv Abramovich, Roderick Murray, Jonah Thornton, Janice Blattis, and David Robb. And happy anniversary. Oh, Beth, happy anniversary. There she is. Number 37. Wow, good for you. All right. Yep, you're welcome.
Thank you. Our thoughts now turn to those who have departed this earth, our own loved ones, those whom our friends and neighbors have lost, the martyrs of our people whose graves are unmarked, and those of every race and nation whose lives have been a blessing to humanity. As we remember them, we meditate on the meaning of love and loss, of life and death. We honor those who have died during the past 12 months. Dean Wilson, Norman Charney, David Alpert, Renee Munoz, Michael Cosson, Paul Dworsky, Ed Eston, Micah Bisel, Jill Daly Katz, Gabriel Harrison Escalera, Colonel Ed West, Joe McCaffrey, Beverly Agner, Ruth Morlett, Lawrence Blake, Othello Thornton, Alan Rosen, Fred Goldman, Ann Rapson, Bob Massey, Lucille Posner, Bunny Goldstein, and William Bill Lenish. We also honor and remember the yahrzeits, the anniversaries of the deaths of Virginia Ryan Kelting, Harry Ehrlich, Haiti Brainin, Maurice Werner, Larry Krieger, Henrietta Novak, Peter Davidson, Kathy Deller, Sanford Rubin, Andrew Michael Friedman, Heini Schechter, Harleen Bergheimer Berman, Betty Eisendrath, Thea Greenhouse, Henrietta Foreman, Annette Friedman, and Oscar Tannen. And if anyone has a name they wish to share, I invite you to please do so.
Yeah, and I'll say my friend and colleague, Rabbi Sim Glazer, who was the rabbi at Temple Israel in Minnesota. I've known him for 50 years. So he just passed away on Tuesday. Yeah.
The Mourner's Kaddish is on page 598. If you're able, please rise. Yitgadal v'yitkadash shmei Rabbah, be'alma divrach hirateh v'yamlik malchuteh, b'chayechon uv'yomechon uv'chayei dechol Beit Yisrael, b'gala uv'izman kariv v'yimru amen. Yehei shmei Rabbah mevorach le'alam ulamei almaya, yitbarach v'yishtabak v'yitpa'ar v'yitramam v'yitnaseh, v'yitadar v'yitalev v'yitalal shmei dekudsha b'riku, le'ela min kol birchata v'shirata, Tush b'chata v'nechamata, damiran ba'alma v'imru amen. Yehei shlama rabba min shmaya, v'chayim aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'imru amen. Oseh shalom b'imromav, hu yaseh shalom, aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'imru amen. May the source of peace grant peace to all those in mourning and comfort to all those who are bereaved. And let us all say amen. Please be seated. We're going to have our final song now. We're going to do the blessings over the challah and wine after Beth speaks. But we're going to close now with which song do you want to do tonight?
I thought, keeping in the Israel theme, we could do Bashana Haba'ah, something we haven't done very often. It's on page 652. Bashana Haba'ah נשב על המרפסת ונספור ציפורים נודדות. ילדים בחופשה ישחקו תופסת בין הבית לבין השדות. או תראה כמה טוב יהיה בשנה הבאה. או תראה כמה טוב יהיה בשנה הבאה. ענבים אדומים יבשילו עד הערב ויוגשו צוננים לשולחן, ורוחות רדומים ייסעו עליהם הדרך, עיתונים ישנים כענן. או תראה כמה טוב יהיה בשנה הבאה. או תראה כמה טוב יהיה בשנה הבאה. לה 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 בשנה הבאה.
Thank you.
Sure.
What a great way to segue to our guest speaker tonight, Beth Painter. As I mentioned at the outset, Beth has just returned from a trip to Israel along with a number, how many? 20? You'll get into it. Along with a number of Jewish elected officials from the area. She's going to share her insights about Israel at a very momentous time. I mentioned it's a 75-year anniversary of the founding of Israel. It's a time where there is a very controversial government in place, and a time where the whole society is in a bit of tumult right now. And we're just so grateful that you've come here to share your insights with us and your observations about Israel and how it affects the country as well as you. So, Beth Painter.
Thank you, Rabbi Niles. Can everybody hear okay? And I'll share what I can. No, can't hear in the back. Better. I'll share what I can in such a short time. Obviously, we're all left with a lot of questions, but it was really an honor in March of this year to be able to have the privilege. I joined 22 other Bay Area elected leaders on this trip to Israel. The trip was organized by the Bay Area JCRC team, and JCRC stands for the Jewish Community Relations Council. JCRC has been a strong Bay Area advocacy group since 1938 in response to the plight of European Jewry. Their action issues have grown over the decades to include First Amendment rights, housing discrimination, public school education, racial justice, reproductive health, and so much more. I could go on and on about JCRC, but I want to acknowledge them, and I really want to encourage you to learn more about what they bring to not only the community, but to the Bay Area. Napa is most definitely a part of the Bay Area JCRC family, so you really should consider this a resource and something to look into. In December of 2021, the JCRC contacted me and said, we want to get a small group of Jewish elected leaders together in the North Bay to talk about just how we can work together. What are our shared goals? How do we support each other? How do we work within our communities to share simple things like the Jewish calendar and major Jewish holidays? And of course, we wanted to talk about how to stand up if faced with anti-Semitic offenses of any kind. Last May, for an example, I helped write a proclamation for the city of Napa to recognize the month of May as Jewish American Heritage Month, and to clearly express our city's obligation to condemn and combat anti-Semitism and hatred wherever they exist. Both Rabbi Niles and the JCRC team helped me with that effort. Some of you might remember in December of 2022, JCRC helped us bring a menorah lighting to CBS. It was celebratory, but it also provided a time to shine a light on anti-Semitism. It was a really powerful event. So JCRC continued to organize Jewish elected leaders all over the Bay Area, and by the end of 2022, the group was really pretty large. We even gave ourselves a name. We called ourselves BANJO, which stands for Bay Area Network of Jewish Officials. So how did this BANJO group move on to a trip to Israel? Well, JCRC as an organization has organized many trips to Israel over the decades. Their trips are generally for public officials. In fact, over the last 25 years, they've brought more than 400 Bay Area community leaders and public officials to Israel, most not Jewish. The purpose of the trip is to provide an in-depth study tour to expose elected leaders to Israel's unique diversity and to build lasting relationships. But what was really unique about the trip that I went on was that it was the first time JCRC offered this trip to Jewish elected leaders. We had participants on this trip from Napa, Sonoma, Marin, Contra Costa, Alameda, San Mateo, and Santa Clara counties, and of course cities within all those counties. The group was really diverse in terms of gender, age, our relationship to Judaism, and even diverse in the types of offices we hold. We started the trip by talking about what the 4 pillars of the trip really were intended to be. First, to explore our own Jewish identity. Second, to learn firsthand about the complex geopolitics of the region. Third, to learn firsthand about the domestic issues in Israel. And fourth, and last but not least, to build lasting relationships. I can tell you we have a WhatsApp group with this group of 22, and we have built lasting relationship. It's been phenomenal. So we started our trip to Israel in Jerusalem. We had an amazing guide with us the entire week. His name was Mayan. He became our friend. He was with us for the entire trip except the one day that we entered the West Bank. We, of course, walked the Old City. We toured the Western Wall. But we did a lot of study tours. The one that really stood out to me in Jerusalem was a half a day that we spent at the Hartman Institute, where we had lectures from two scholars about Jewish peoplehood and about our roles between power and responsibility. We asked questions like, what does it mean to show up in the world? What are the driving forces in a shared humanity? And what does it really mean to love thy neighbor? That was a big question for us as we entered our trip to Israel. The Hartman Institute is a leading center for pluralistic thought and education, and we got a really good taste of that. They have a fabulous website with lots of resources. If you're interested in digging deeper, I would encourage you to look at that. We had an in-depth educational tour at Yad Vashem. We not only visited the Knesset, but we met with one member of the Knesset who was with a party called the Yesh Atid Party. And for those who are familiar with the structure of the Knesset, his party is considered a centrist liberal political party, but right now he's a part of the minority or the opposition in the Knesset. We visited the Supreme Court, and we discussed the fact that Israel still has no constitution. How does that impact how government operates? One of the most impactful days that we had was traveling into the West Bank. We had to have different guides. We had security guards. Israeli Jews are not allowed to enter the West Bank, so our guide that we had couldn't come with us. I could tell you a lot about that day, but one of the most impactful things for me was walking through a refugee camp and seeing how these families have been living for the past 50-plus years. Our guide said to us, we shouldn't be fooled by checkpoints and security. We discussed the 1993 Oslo Accords and where things stand today. We had a lecture from a professor with the Palestinian Center for Policy and Survey Research. He was phenomenal. His research is complete. It's scientifically based. He was very clear and specific, but I will tell you the bottom line of his research was three things. Discomfort is rising, hardline attitudes are rising, and militancy is rising. So we had some difficult messages that we heard. We walked the streets of Ramallah, and we stood in front of the Church of the Nativity in Bethlehem. We were in the West Bank on the first day of Ramadan. It was really, truly powerful. We visited a kibbutz located just 1 mile from the Gaza border. These areas and this kibbutz was so close to Gaza that they have an extensive array of bomb shelters. A part of the everyday life in this kibbutz was making sure you knew where the closest bomb shelter is. If the sirens go off, they have 10 seconds to find a safe place to go. At the same time, kids are playing, families are gathering, and there was an amazing, strong sense of community on this kibbutz. We saw some amazing research and technology in Israel. We visited their Desert Agricultural Research Station, which I found really fascinating. We visited one of the largest solar power fields I've ever seen, and their wastewater reclamation facility, which recycles 100% of their wastewater from the whole Tel Aviv region of 2.5 million people. It's really, truly phenomenal. So we finished our trip in Tel Aviv, where we met with the vice mayor of Tel Aviv. We also had an amazing Shabbat dinner prepared by an Orthodox synagogue that serves all backgrounds and embraces the LGBTQ community. We participated in the Tel Aviv protests with a mere 220,000 other people. And we closed our meeting, our 8-day trip, with a meeting with Dan Shapiro, who was ambassador to Israel during the Obama administration. And Dan shared a lot with us, but he said he's met with many groups, and over the decades, he said he always seems to tell visitors, "You're visiting Israel at a very interesting time." But then he turned to us and he said, "You are really visiting Israel at a very interesting time." So the banjo trip to Israel provided me with this rare opportunity to experience what life is like in Israel in 2023. And while there are conflicts that appear to have no immediate resolution, I left Israel with a sense of hope that the people of Israel really truly embrace the diversity of their home, and so many are ready to work as long and as hard as it takes to ensure a bright and vibrant future for their children and the generations to come. I really, truly still have that feeling. I did bring a map of Israel if anybody has questions and they want to see some of these areas. It's probably too small to put up, but I'm welcome. If there are questions, we can refer to that. I do want to apologize in advance. I can't stay long for the ONEG, so I'm hoping that if we can, have a dialogue now, that's great. I'm also more than happy to get together and talk more with anybody who wants to really dive into the specifics. That was the tip of the iceberg, and I have a million pictures. So with that, Niles, I don't know, did you want to?
Yeah.
Do you want to start with questions? Does anybody have
Well, I wanted to
questions?
open up the floor. We have a few minutes for if that's okay with you.
Absolutely.
And by the way, just for clarification, particularly for our visitors tonight, in my introduction, I didn't want to go overboard because there's so much to say about you, but Beth is also a city councilwoman for the city of Napa. So that is the context for being a Jewish elected official. Questions we'll go to Linda and then Robert.
Yeah, okay. Okay. Okay.
I'll hear you.
All right. Are you at all able to compare, or did you develop your own point of view on the way Americans protest and on the way Israeli citizens protest and the differing expressions for the government, the national government, if anything went through your mind?
Well, the night that we were able to participate, if you have followed the news recently, was the day that the Minister of Defense said, time out, we need to hit the pause button on this notion of judicial reform. So the feeling in the streets that night was strong in terms of asking and pleading and talking about democracy, but I also felt a really strong sense of joy. A few differences that I noticed. Number one, all age groups, not just younger, not just older, families, and so many Israeli flags. The pride in the Israeli flag was really evident, and that really made me feel good. So I think the diversity in the crowd, that particular night happened to be, I think, a feeling like there's movement forward. So that's what I sensed. And we didn't, just based on the time that we were there, have any feeling of discomfort.
Thank you, Beth.
Yeah.
I have two questions.
Okay.
One professional and one personal.
Okay.
All right, so the professional one is, how was this trip underwritten? Who actually paid for it? Question one. And question two is, how was the food?
Well, I'm going to start with the question two because the food was phenomenal. And for those of you who've been to Israel, you kind of know, first of all, the Israeli breakfast. It really kind of lasts you all day. Both lunches and dinners generally started with a huge array of all kinds of appetizers. And my first reaction was, what a great meal, and I started eating everything. Well, that was just the appetizers. And we had a variety. Our meals, I will tell you, we did everything from some incredible restaurants. We had a Bedouin woman who cooked a meal for us, a lunch for us, during Ramadan, when she couldn't even eat. And she told us her life story, and it brought tears to your eyes. She was amazing. So the food was a breadth of variety, incredible. JCRC does provide a good portion of the funding for the trip. It is not a trip that is in any way funded by the city of Napa. So it's shared between each of us and JCRC. If anyone had limitations, JCRC was very willing to help.
Other questions for Beth, anybody? Mark?
I was in Israel about 7 or 8 years ago for my niece's wedding there. And after the wedding, I'm a little adventurous, so my cousin and I had a rental car, and we were going to the Dead Sea. And the normal route to go to the Dead Sea is much further around through the Negev desert, but you can also get there through the West Bank. And that's what we did. And it was striking, first of all, leaving Jerusalem and seeing the wall. And then about halfway down, it's also very cool because you're going down into below sea level. So you see those markers along the road, -100, -150. It's kind of like, what are those? And then you realize that's what it is. About halfway down, there's a stop sign or stoplight, and there had been an accident there. And it was interesting because that was where it was really kind of interesting, because it was when I realized that, oh, all these other cars, they have a P on their license plate, and I have an I. And also I have, I think, Avis or Hertz or whatever, they have it on the rental car. It's not even hidden that this is a rental car. And so it was interesting because it was a little hard merging in through the traffic at the accident, and I had to be a little aggressive to get in, which I was, but I made it in. And then the other striking thing was leaving through the checkpoint back into the, unoccupied, whatever area, was interesting because the cars with the Ps, some of them were heading to the checkpoint and they were turning around for, I don't even know why they were even trying, if maybe some days they were allowed through and some days they weren't. But so my question is, would that be like totally insane now for someone like me who was just my female cousin and I just driving into the West Bank on our own? Did you get a sense of that?
Well, we did that.
Yeah, but you did
But
that
we were with
guards, yeah.
3 security guards and a guide who was Palestinian. He was a writer for the New York Times. He was very aware of everything that was happening. He talked to us a lot about the license plates and looking at the difference between the 2 types of license plates, the difference between the checkpoints where the Palestinians go and where other cars go. It's very dramatic. I would not recommend going on your own today. I don't know. I did not look into whether or not there are other ways in organized trips. We also did have a dinner in a settlement in the West Bank. Yeah. And it's become more restrictive. Our guide that became our close friend couldn't come with us that day.
Oh, we have time for one more quick question, right? Is that okay? One more?
Sure, of course.
Yeah, one more question. Anybody have anything they want to ask Beth before she heads out? Guy. You have a political background, and I bet this will be political, right?
It will, yeah. I want to ask, you mentioned just that you went to have dinner in a settler community. wanted to ask from your visit to the West Bank and visit to the settler community what you saw for prospects for peace, given increased settler activity, given that it seems year after year that it gets more difficult to find that common ground, more difficult to figure out what that compromise could be, post-Oslo, post-everything else.
Yeah, easy question. So, you know, I think I went in maybe naively in my head thinking that the two-state solution is still something that we can work towards. The community is so integrated, you know, when you try to draw a line and separate, it's really challenging. So I think that's where the direction, in my humble opinion, really should go, is in terms of trying to create an equitable life for everyone, regardless of their affiliation, and maintain what Israel is as a Jewish state. That's hard, but I don't think, I honestly feel there's a lot of people, and going to the protests, you really do feel it on the street, that there's a lot of people who are ready to work in that direction. But what you see in terms of the difference in lifestyle in the West Bank, and you know, and I learned a great deal, so I'll say things that maybe now I'm comfortable with that before the trip I didn't know, that the West Bank is divided into these three areas, A, B, and C. And the distinction between the areas is really dramatic. I won't get into all of it right now, but that's not working. This notion of, well, we'll draw a line and this, you know, group will live here and this group will live there. The Bedouin experience was a little bit different because that was a community that Israel said, you know, nomadic lifestyle's not really working in our current, you know, climate of how we build and grow as a community. So they've created some more permanent locations. And this particular visit we had was in a city that the Bedouins were able to build homes. So it was a little bit different. That, I think, was, at least to me, an interesting example of how to try to integrate that lifestyle within the context of how we should live our lives in 2023. Did you have questions too? No? Okay.
I'm cognizant of time, and I know you need to run. So I just want to thank you so much, Beth, for sharing your observations, your insights about Israel, its impact on you as an elected official and as a Jew. And I appreciate your invitation for people to continue the dialogue with you after tonight.
Absolutely.
It's something.
Very quick. Are you going to be, you and others, are you going to be presenting anything in a public forum?
You know, we have sent all of our comments back to JCRC. Individually, many of us are doing our own things in our own communities. Everybody's a little bit different. I will tell you, we had a council member with us from Berkeley. That's a very different environment right now. So what she may want to do in her community is different than what I would want to do. But we are very well connected, and I feel such a sense of strength from that.
Are you going to be speaking in a public forum anytime soon?
I'm happy to. I mean, I've talked to a few groups. This is my first. If you think it went well, you know, I don't charge much, so yeah. Yeah, be happy to.
Thank you so much, Beth. We are going to conclude our service. Well, we concluded the service. We're going to do our blessings now before the oneg that's waiting for us. So if you would please rise.
Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, borei peri hagafen. Amen.
L'chaim.
Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, hamotzi lechem min haaretz. Amen. B'tei avo.
Shabbat shalom, everyone.
Shabbat shalom. Shabbat shalom. Shabbat, 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 Shabbat shalom. Shabbat shalom. Shabbat shalom. Shabbat, 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 Shalom. Shabbat, 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 Shalom. Shabbat, 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 Shalom. Shabbat, Shalom. Shabbat, Shalom. Shabbat, 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 Shalom.